Hi, and welcome back to Morgellons discussion and microscopy videos. I'm your host, Jeremy. I won't break your goddamn heart, Murphy, and I'm here to tell you about the brand new Morgellons Survey that just went live a couple of days ago. But first, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and click that button down there below. Follow us on this video, and if you feel like you like it at the end, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And feel free to participate in the discussion down below. So, the first things first, we're going to talk about this new Morgellons survey, but there's also a couple of new studies that came out that definitely need mentioning, and I want to give you an update where we are with the new Morgellons movement and what, if anything, it has to do with actual medical research. And I have answers for all of these questions and more. Hope everybody's having a great summer. It seems like it's winding down rather quickly, but that's the way it works every single year. So if you haven't had a chance to get outside and enjoy the summertime, still got a few more weeks left in it to really take it all in. It's been nice. I had a good summer getting out and just spent a lot of time in the park, but spent a lot more time out with friends, and that made a big difference. So the first thing is the second Morgellons survey. The first Morgellons survey was something I just kind of whipped up. I put a few questions together, and I made a mistake. I published preliminary results on my website. I jumped the gun, and because of that, data wasn't really valuable or useful to too many scientific journals and the efforts to have it highlighted in them. This time I collaborated. I communicated with several professionals and asked them their opinions on these questions, and I got some great feedback on it. And one thing that you'll notice right away on the second set of questions is that there are some sex-specific questions on there, like would you use condoms if you were diagnosed with Morgellons, and would you consider using the D-PrEP, which is taking a doxycycline pill to prevent potential transmission. Would your partner be open to doing that? Because that's something that health professionals are having to look at now. They're trying to make the case that, hey, these spirochetal infections, Lyme disease especially, but also syphilis is making a comeback, and there are other strains of these infections, the spirochetal ones specifically, that we just don't even have standardized tests for, and some we haven't even discovered yet. And I didn't even talk about the Bartonella. That's not just one strain of bacteria. There are several strains of that, and we just haven't discovered all of them or made tests for most of them. So a lot of these infections can go undetected for a variety of reasons. Of course, syphilis and Lyme disease themselves can suppress the immune system so that it's not producing enough antibodies to show themselves on that serologic screen. It can produce a false negative. It can also produce a false positive in light of autoimmune antibodies. So the doctor's ability to determine whether or not an infection is persistent or if it's just a latent ongoing autoimmune response is diminished in light of accurate testing, lack of accurate testing. We just don't have it in place for these kinds of infections. When you say infections, a lot of people think about the cold. You know, you catch it just out of the air and then you deal with it for a week and then it's gone and that's it. But that's not really how Lyme disease works. And the best analogy it could probably give you would be the long COVID, when people that catch the virus and then they have persistent symptoms. In them, it's not likely that the coronavirus infection is still playing a role in their body, but you never know. It's a virus just like HIV, and you know that sticks around for a long time. So, in light of this, health authorities are asking themselves, okay, to slow the transmission of these spirochetal infections, we know we can't get everybody to practice safe sex. Can we get them to take a antibiotic before they have that, and then is that going to prevent the transmission? And that's something that they've been running studies on. I posted a link to one of them from Africa, where they were looking at that, and they found that It did, in fact, slow the transmission, and there's an effort here in the United States at the CDC, as a matter of fact. One of the prominent Lyme disease researchers there is making the case that this may be a good potential deterrent of the infectious process from occurring between one person to another. So that's why those questions are in there specifically. We don't have anything about Morgellons and the potential transmission of infection, because Lyme disease, there is evidence that Lyme disease can be a sexually transmissible disease, and so that's something people have to, at least be aware of. And so, anyways, if you get a chance and you want to check out the survey, it's morgellonssurvey.org. It's the original website, morgellonssurvey.org. This is the second set of questions. There's 12 questions this time. The validator is the email address, so there's actually just 11 questions. But we try to set it up so that it's very easy, very quick for people to run through, and they feel kind of entertained while they're doing it. So it's kind of fun, but at the end of the day, we want to get that data and hopefully use that data to help Morgellons patients have a better standard of living going forward, because if this is a long-term thing for some people can get cured on just 3 weeks of antibiotics. They're good to go. But different people have different responses to antibiotics and different amounts of exposures to various pathogens, and so they may require a longer duration of treatment. But we need to develop the tools so that physicians can understand in which case is that appropriate to treat long term. And so that leads into the new Morgellons movement. I want to be very clear, I am not trying to compete with the Charles Holman Foundation. They've done a great job of being able to fund the science, to fund the advocacy tools and the information that we need to be able for physicians to take Morgellons legitimately, characterize it, and be able to heal patients, help remediate patients who are actually experiencing this disastrous skin condition. And so that's not the point. The point is that there's a gap that I felt that they were not filling in. And, sometimes when people just don't have the resources or don't want to, do things a certain way because maybe it'll detract from something else they're doing, you have to fill in that gap. And so that's what I wanted to do. The gap is in specifically education. Physicians do not have the tools to help remediate or even diagnose the Morgellons condition. They've got a variety of sciences out there that some are even saying that it's not real, and that's the most widely held belief. But as the actual investigation has shown, that's not the case. It's that some people mistakenly believe they have it, and some physicians aren't educated about what it actually is. When physicians discover what Morgellons is, when you're able to show them that, hey, it's this, not a dragon in your tummy, then usually their reaction is, oh, that's all it is? And yet that really is all it is. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but it's something that's tangible, that we have evidence for, and that can be investigated. If a patient presents with this skin condition, then it is responsible to run a battery of tests for spirochetal infections specifically. That evidence was corroborated by a Chinese review of the literature, which came out in 2018. So that's what the new Morgellons movement is really all about. It's not about fighting with the Charles Holman Foundation. It's definitely not about fighting with managing Morgellons. I hope Brittany's doing well, and I definitely support her in her endeavors. But the new Morgellons movement is about science. I am working with 2 other people, and I would like to be able to bring them on board as board members so we can register with the IRS so that people can donate money to our organization so we can produce these tools. We do have a cryptocurrency, but it's still in development. It's not ready for launch. We have the white paper, but putting these things into practice can often be a lot more difficult and complicated than you can anticipate, especially when you're dealing with technologies that are passion projects. They're developed by people who believe in this. They want to see it happen. But these people really need teams of people. They need quality assurances. They need help. And, you just really got to go with what you got. The technology that we built, Ether Morgon, is good. It's based off of Bitcoin, but then again, it's based off of Bitcoin. So there's positives and negatives. I'm happy with who we went with, but being able to execute our specific application for this cryptocurrency is where we're a little bit hung up on. If I can get some resources, then I'd be more than happy to bring on some programmers on board who may have a lot more vested time into these technologies and will be able to more rapidly deploy our vision for this technology. Yeah, because I'm definitely not an expert at everything, and everybody knows that anyways. But for the New Morgellons movement, we would like to be able to sell. We would like to be able to we would like to be able to send as a free gift for your donations. You know how that works with the charities. If you donate so much money to our efforts, we would like to be able to give you a free gift of cryptocurrency, which we envision you'll be able to utilize on the website in exchange for Morgellons-themed items and resources. So there's a marketplace. That cryptocurrency is always in circulation, hopefully, and it's to the benefit of the patients who really, they need to be able to see doctors who are going to utilize the resources that we're trying to put together. So I can always use more help on this. Anybody who wants to help, please reach out to me and talk to me about this. This is not a crazy project. This is something serious. I did go down to I went to the Secretary of State's website and registered the organization here in South Carolina. So yes, I did make an actual commitment to do something with this initiative. And I am really trying to apply myself so that, this isn't a joke operation. This is something serious that's going to benefit Morgellons patients in the long run. All right, and so the last thing I wanted to talk with y'all about was the community perceptions, and specifically about Lyme disease. A lot of people don't understand when we say Lyme disease, we're actually talking about seeing a doctor who's not an infectious diseases doctor, a Lyme literate doctor, which is the two different organizations, but it's also two different approaches to treating this disease. I know that not all infectious disease doctors, but a lot of them believe that the Lyme disease infection is completely cleared out of a patient after a certain amount of antibiotics, and that it's just an autoimmune infection that's persisting afterwards. We just talked about that. But there is actual evidence by scientists who have been on this show that we've interviewed that have demonstrated that in some patients, in fact probably a lot of them, it's the persistent infection, the persistence of the infection despite the antibiotic treatments, and not a lone autoimmune response itself, but that the bacteria that is still persisting beyond that treatment is in fact resulting in those autoimmune responses. And you can't just culture Lyme disease out of thin air, and these scientists have been able to culture Lyme disease off of patients that are currently or have previously been treated. That doesn't negate the potential for reinfection, of course, but it's something that, and that's the thing about Lyme disease people don't understand. Once you get it, it's not like you get immunity to it. There's a lot of strains of it. There's syphilis is their cousins. It's debatable about which one is the smarter one, but the point is that you can get that over and over and over again, and various strains. There's hundreds of strains of syphilis too, believe it or not. So the community, when you're talking about Lyme disease, be sure that you're talking about the other infections, because you're not really talking about Lyme disease. You're talking about the positive experience you had seeing a Lyme disease specialist who approaches treatment in a different way than the infectious diseases doctors, most of them. There are a lot of infectious disease doctors who treat Lyme disease like they would syphilis if it was continuing to present the debilitations within their patient post-treatment. And with with syphilis, they get hardcore. They go, the intravenous antibiotics, the spinal taps, and all that stuff. I mean, if they're cousin bacterias and they accomplish debilitation through the same or similar mechanisms, then both should be taken equally seriously. So when you're talking with the community, just understand, when you say Lyme disease, they're thinking you're talking about that one specific infection. They're just like this. So it may help to, instead of talking about the infections, to talk about the experience that you had with your Lyme specialist. Be like, yeah, I did. I mean, and that's my story. I don't even have Lyme disease as far as we can tell, but I do have tick-borne relapsing fever, which is another one of those cousins of Lyme disease and syphilis. Or, that's what we were able to find evidence of. But the difference is in my skin. I mean, I don't have heaps of sores all over my skin anymore, and that's, because I just did, the past 5 years of antibiotics. And sometimes that's what it takes, is to get that saturation, especially after all the years that you were sucking up all those pathogens and the cigarette smoke to help your own body's bacteria build those biofilm colonies inside your body. And we don't have a way to measure those. We don't have a way to scrub those out. But the difference is the treatment. What I hear a lot of people saying is they bounced off 22 different doctors before they finally saw a Lyme specialist, and that Lyme specialist was able to bring them to a point where they were able to stand in front of the camera and say, look, I'm back. I didn't die. I thought I was going to die, but I'm here, and everything's going to be normal. And if you approach it that way instead of approaching it straight out with the Lyme disease, and it's not like you're backdooring Lyme disease, because really the reality is a tick can carry numerous amounts of infections, but you can also acquire infections along the way throughout your life, and the older you get, the more opportunity you have for those exposures. So, it's not Lyme disease. It's so polarizing. It's hard to be able to introduce people to the reality that you saw a doctor who made a difference in your life after seeing several dozen doctors that didn't. And that's what you really want people to understand, and that's where the community support, I think, they can be able to meet you. If you can go, you saw the pictures, you saw me in real life, I was walking around with sores all over my skin. I kept trying to be responsible about it and seeing doctor after doctor after doctor, but it wasn't until I saw a Lyme specialist that I was able to get my skin cleared up and the sores healed. I think that's something people can relate to a lot more than trying to explain the, dropping boxes of ticks over Cuba. What do you guys think? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Definitely going to be ramping up these videos as school gets back into session, because we do have that online course, and if you'd like to take it for free, go to morgellons.teachable.com. That's morgellons.teachable.com. We have a free online course. A lot of people, dozens, have already acquired their certificate of completion. We've got hundreds of people signing up for that course, but it's only dozens that have been able to complete it. So best of luck, and we'll see you soon.